G'day Bomber fans, that was a bloody tough loss. We are now out of the 8 for the first time since round 10. Finals is now looking like a really tough task, and I think this game is proof that even if we make the 8, we might not go too far in September. It's going to be an honest review today, but before I start, make sure you get your player of the match votes in down below. 3-2-1 Brownlow style, Bomber players only. So the game started and we looked the goods. That first term was as professional as it gets. Around the contest in defense, we weren't letting them get any control at all. We had the game on our terms, and more importantly, we were shutting down their major asset, their clearance and contested possession style. The only issue really was the fact that we weren't really taking advantage of our dominance. We only kicked 3 goals despite having all the play our way. The second quarter was an important one because it was either going to see one of two things happen. Us finally start to show scoreboard pressure and get on top, or the Dogs find their way back in the game. And unfortunately for us, it was the latter. The Dogs must have received an almighty rev up because they came to play. They reversed the clearance and contested possession differentials. They started gaining territory. They started hitting the scoreboard, and in a matter of minutes, they were in front and we wouldn't hit the lead after that moment. The third and fourth quarter was just more of the same as the second. We were hopeless around contests. They were not. We were being bullied by a bigger and better team. It's what I saw happening before the game started, but not to this extent. I was never confident we would win the game, but going down as easily as we did, it's tough. I am really disappointed because up until that Cats game, we had been in every match at around the halftime stage, but the last 2 weeks, we've lowered our colours. On a Friday night, playing for finals, that was ugly. It was ugly and deflating, and honestly, I'm more disappointed than I was after that Cats game. So getting to the point quickly, how did we lose this game of footy? Because there is a lot to talk about. The Dogs were just better, bigger and better. This game was always going to be contest heavy, and the Dogs were up for the fight for longer. We showed glimpses that first term, but after quarter time, the clearance count was 15-42. That's just not good enough. No team should be losing that badly. We were bullied by Libba, Bontempelli, Bailey Smith. They were more mature, I would say, in the engine room. The only Dons that seemed up to the task were Merritt and Parrish, but they had no help. Hobbs and Caldwell seemed a level lower than they usually are. Perkins really didn't work there either, and Tim English made it hard for Phillips and Bryan to take control. I have liked our progression from defence to attack this year, but that was boring footy. The Dogs were happy to let us muck around in defence. We were going sideways. There was no purpose to our ball movement. It seemed like we were trying to get a certain number of uncontested marks or something. There was no thought or method. We chipped it around happily for a few minutes before bombing it to their defenders, who would bring it over our heads with purpose and pace. It was an uninspiring performance, and it shows that our current game style can easily be undone by a professional outfit. The Cats and Dogs have eased past us and laughed as we cautiously poke around kicks in our back 50. We held the ball as much as we have all year really, but we held it in unthreatening positions. I said we needed to be efficient going inside 50, and we weren't. We looked really lost entering our forward zone or going anywhere around the ground really. Peter Wright may as well have been wearing a high-vis vest and a hat that said "kick it to me." We almost missed Wiedemann a bit. There was no variety going forward. He had a good night, Pete, but you can only do so much as the lone target, and we did nothing to try and change it. We went at 30% efficiency inside 50. They went at over 50. They had more options and used them better. I thought our defense yet again held up well. It has all year, but there was no synergy from midfield to forward line. In a game that was won in the middle of the ground, I thought we were slow or inactive to change anything to stem the flow. We were up and about early, but couldn't deal with the sheer power that Dogs' engine room possesses. I don't know why we didn't put Stringer in the guts more, or do something to nullify the impact of Bontempelli, but we seemed like we were wearing the fluoro vests in a training drill. The pressure being applied was for naught. I think Bevo had a great game in the coach's box, and on the flip side, we were slow to bring Hind on as the impact sub, slow to throw an extra player back when the Dogs gained that early second quarter control, slow to do anything really. It was a slow night for all involved. We were well below our best playing a team at their best. The Dogs were great. I need to give credit to them. That is the type of team we will be playing in finals, and we just couldn't match them. They were efficient, they were ruthless, they were brutal, they were much better than us and deserved the win, probably by more if we're being real, looking at those contested possession stats. I know the scoreline wasn't bad until the last quarter, but it was a matter of time until they got a roll on and ran over us. We had the same amount of inside 50s, but they won by 7 goals more. It just shows the stark difference between the nature of ball movement throughout the night. Their zone stood up. I thought their defense, despite it being probably their lowest rated area of the ground, was really solid. So was ours. Both forward lines did what they could with what they were given. Ours was dysfunctional, but part of that blame has to go to the midfield. But the difference between their best and our best, it was light and day. It was in the midfield, as I've said this whole video. The way Liberatore scrapped the ball out to an outlet, we had no one that could do that. The way Bont bodied his way around, Bailey Smith's tackling. I know it's silly to point out individuals in a loss this big, but it's a good way to look at it. The difference between our best and their best, it's monumental. And then you have the the fact we had underperforming players, there are real question marks around Jake Stringer at the moment. The guy's our barometer. He was so lively early in the game in that first quarter. He was fierce and strong, and it looked like one of those nights where he would just take control of the game and win it on his own, but 8 disposals to finish, that's just not good enough. Perkins, 8 disposals. Caldwell, 2 score involvements. Those are players that do things with ball in hand, not doing enough, not rising to the occasion. That's just the story of the night. We didn't rise to the occasion as a club. For all the talk during the week about us being up for it, we weren't, and I don't want people talking about where we are in terms of premiership push. Yes, it's a developmental season, but not a lot good comes from a result like that. It's a learning curve, yes, but more than anything, a morale reducer. And our fringe players didn't stand up either. I thought Snelling had a low night, Brian was just not up to the task, Hobbs, Caldwell, Cox, the list goes on, and on the flip side, I thought their fringe players showed lots. Baker was lively, Karmas, despite not having much stats-wise, played a role, Scott, Poulter, they just beat us in most areas really. Our A graders were B graders, and our B graders were C graders. Are there any positives? Of course there are a few. That first term, it was super professional. We didn't maintain it, but we need to zone in on that term to look at what we did well as much as the other 3 to see what we did badly. We controlled the game really well. I was pleased. It obviously didn't last long though. Our defense was really solid. It has been all year. We've only conceded 100 points against one team this season, and to face an attack with Waitman, Norton, Ugle-Hagen and concede a reasonable score, it shows how solid we can be and how flexible we can be looking at the zones. That was by far and away our best, even though we were stagnant attacking from there. Speaking of defense though, Jordan Ridley appears to have hurt his quad. Quad injuries are rarely pleasant. They can ruin development and stall rehab, so let's hope it's minor. Archie Perkins also came off late. I don't know if it was from that earlier knock to his ribs or something else. I haven't seen much talked about it. We'll find out during the week. But Ridley, that's a player in my eyes that is just about our most important. You notice when he isn't playing, so hopefully it's not one that will set his career back like some quad injuries do. In the end, it's just a sour night, which means it's a sour review. Friday nights should be fun, but that was not. It's back-to-back beltings. We have been no good at a time where we really should be showing what we're made of. We have 3 winnable games in a row to hopefully get our season back on track a bit so we can finish on a high, but let's get into the votes for Friday night's game. 1 vote to Kyle Langford. He made our forward line look good. 9 score involvements, 2 goals, a goal assist. I think the next best score involvements wise for us was 6. Just another good night and a good season for him. 2 votes to BZT. I've talked about him being beaten in one-on-ones a lot this year, but it didn't happen at all on Friday. He had double the amount of spoils as anyone on the field with 12 and 3 intercept marks as well, but 3 votes Jordan Ridley. It was just a sublime performance. 5 intercept marks, 3 contested, 29 disposals and 96% efficiency, and all that in under 70% of game time. It's just a terrific performance, so we're all hoping that he's okay. Any players that were close to votes? Not really, let's be honest. Laverde was actually up there. He was probably 4th best in my eyes. Redmond was up there as well. He can be 5th. Merritt did have a pretty good night. Parrish, 9 clearances. Wright, 3 goals. Guelphy had decent pressure, but that's about it though. Get your votes in down below. Cheers for watching. I will see you on Wednesday for our round preview for the game against the Swans. A massive game because they're looking up and about. But cheers for watching, Dons fans.